every time we interview anyone, I always say, I've got an easy question. It ends up being a difficult one, as Phil will attest to. But Ian, I'm going to ask you an easy one first.
Okay.
Because the role director of rugby means something different at every club, it seems. What does it mean at Halifax, and what is your role there?
Primarily, my role is to support Simon Griggs, the head coach. Obviously, the main target for Simon is new players and existing players, looking after the welfare. And on the new players, I give him advice, but ultimately the coach makes the decision. Once he gives me the shopping list, then I do the negotiating. So that's the main headline. Obviously, looking after the existing players. Simon coaches, and anything other than coaching is down to me. You know, any issues, any problems, any help, anything. So it's quite a varied role.
I suppose we should cut to the chase as well.
Okay.
Obviously, all the talk is about the 12th team in Super League for 2021. We've seen the application process come out. It's a 15-page document, lots of terms and conditions.
Yeah.
Halifax initially, before that was issued, said we definitely want to be included. Are you now precluded from what you've seen, or will you be applying?
The criteria that came out on Friday, we have failed to qualify, so we're out. However, the criteria came out after the application, which is a little bit in reverse, and also within the criteria, the funding. You know, let's talk about that. Who in the right mind would try to go into Super League with £1 million? I mean, the rest have got 1.8. They've had 6 months start. It's an impossible task. So, whilst I'm disappointed that we're not in the chase, the truth is, we know what we've got to do, and we're not ready. But we have to be in the race. Had I known it was £1 million, I wouldn't have wasted my time. That's the truth.
So, without putting words into your mouth, because we've again just come off a Zoom call with Toronto Wolfpack, and there are some issues that they've raised that I think are relevant to the conversations that we're going to have about the whole transparency of the decisions being made at the moment, and they call it, and I think we have as well, a civil war that is currently going on still between Super League and the RFL. Do you honestly believe, now that you can stand back from this process, that the team that goes up is set up to fail?
Well, financially, unless you've got a benefactor, which I think London and Lee have, and partially Featherstone, but you know, 800 grand is a massive amount to find just to stay with, you know, and that's money that rightfully should be there. You know, I can't understand why. It's hard enough putting a team together so late. The last team coming in will also have the problem that I negotiate player contracts, and you know, the last team coming in, the players will want more money to go into that team because they know they're not going to win as many games, and they want more money for the inconvenience. So the team with less money is going to end up spending more money on a team that's not as good, and that again, you're set up to fail. Yeah, you're set up to fail.
Obviously, we mentioned before we started recording, 2020 has been a very difficult year for everyone. Halifax, you start the season and then everything grinds to a halt. The season's cancelled. How's the club looking in shape after that decision?
Well, look, this first and foremost, the season ticket holders, the sponsors have all, I think the percentage is about 90% or more than 90% have allowed the club to keep the money. That's a massive amount. Without that, we wouldn't be in the position we're in. The second thing that happened is furlough. Let's be honest, furlough has helped the club significantly. So we're in a good spot. We've renegotiated the existing players' contracts that were already contracted for next year. We renegotiated them down in line with the conditions. So, you know, we've reduced the overhead for next year on existing players. And also the incoming players, there's been probably a 20-25% reduction in the value they were in 2020 to the value they are in 2021. So that again, factoring in, we have, in my opinion, a much stronger team next year, but spending 20-25% less, which is a good place to be.
In terms of, again, I'm afraid this is a subject that probably isn't going to go away now, the Toronto and the 12th team and everything, and inevitably even talking to you about what maybe a 3 or 5 year plan for your club might look like, it's going to impinge upon all these discussions. This effectively is almost a licensing process, even if it's only for 1 year, because clearly no team has been on the field, so whichever one becomes the 12th team is being judged on conditions. Do you think that's right for the sport looking ahead, that it's not solely about your performance on the field, but we now do need to take a more holistic framing the future type approach?
Well, the 12th team coming in, it's about the performance. Firstly and foremostly, we are in the business of entertaining. So what is the point of a team, whichever team it may be, moving to the top table and not being able to perform to a decent level? You know, getting walloped every week by 50 points just because you've got a bigger fan base than Club B, or just because you've got an academy, or just, you know what, it's what people go to watch rugby. They don't go to talk about the academy, they don't go to talk about the financial structure of the business and how many directors, and it's what happens on the field. Well, there are some strong contenders and there are some that are not quite as strong, and there are some that are in the middle. So to me, firstly and foremost, it's got to be the team that can compete, and there's probably only 2 that spring to mind. The rest are not as good. Now, they've all got other attributes which, during the judging process, will get them over the line. But it's what happens on the field, to me. We're in the entertainment business. If we don't entertain, then we ain't got a business.
And in terms of the business and looking ahead and acknowledging how tough a year it's been for the world, never mind a sport within that world, what are your views on things like expansion? You know, you're looking after one of the most traditional clubs in an area that has been hugely supportive, not only of the sport, but even in the formation of the sport. The Huddersfield Halifax area was there right at the very beginning. But a lot of the northern industrial base of it doesn't exist anymore, and Halifax would have suffered that as much as anywhere, with some of the mills it's famous for closing down.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have to expand as a sport? Can we afford to stay concentrated on the M62 corridor? Is that something that we shouldn't lose sight of at the moment?
I think you've got to look at this in 2 ways. I think from a spectator point of view, the M62 corridor, yes, but the game's not funded by spectators anymore. The game is funded by the largest TV company, Sky, and basically it's what they need that's more important than what we need. You know, they fund the game, so they're not going to sell dishes in Halifax or Huddersfield. They need to spread to other areas where they've not sold dishes for Rugby League, and that's what finances the game. So I'm an expansionist. I believe, you know, my businesses were in America, and I was quite excited with the Toronto situation. I just felt if it was done properly, the North American TV, wow, you know, it's such a huge untapped market, which I know there's been some reports done by people, but look, I spent a lot of time in America, and the Americans are sports mad. Well, I think we've kind of hit a curveball by, well, not us. I think the sport, losing Toronto, I think if Toronto was run properly, there's definitely a place, and I think the benefits to all would have been far, far greater than whether we have a team in Yorkshire or a team in London, you know. That's my view anyway.
How do you think the Championship's going to look next year? There's obviously been rumours of some kind of merger between the Championship and League One. There's a potential of the new Sky deal being less and less filtering down. No one seems to know exactly what's going to happen yet next year.
Well, this is one of the issues, because we have to budget for next year, and when you do a budget, you do it to the best of your ability, but you take into consideration the teams you're going to be playing. Now, what time of year you play that team affects the income. If I play Bradford in July, it's a bigger gate than playing them in February because of the weather. All those factors are put into place, but at the moment we don't really know which teams are going to be in the Championship and which aren't. And we've all done budgets and we've all signed players, and it's a risk. What was the question again? Sorry.
Do we have any idea how the Championship's going to be formed next year?
Look, I mean, there's talk about. I mean, Bradford are a great club with a huge following, and it's a great local derby for Halifax and Bradford on Boxing Day, and they're one of the teams now that could be in Super League. So who knows? I mean, I did see the proposal to merge, which, look, I think it's more of a desperation thing than an actual. So if two divisions merge, you're going to end up with the same teams winning at the end of the year. So no, I'm not a fan of two divisions merging. I'm just not.
Because
so I think.
Sorry, you mentioned budgets. It's going to be hard to, with the greatest of respect to a West Wales, say, it's going to be hard to sell that to the Halifax public to say, come down and watch us win by 50, 60 points, perhaps.
Well, without being disrespectful, yeah, exactly. And then, what happens at the end of the year, the top 4 teams in each division, which we all know who they are, it's the top Championship teams, end up being the winners or being, competitive. So nobody wants to see teams get beat by 60. They want to see teams compete and entertain, which I think it was more of a sort of a plea from League One to stay at the table, not to be ignored. And you know what? League One's got a place in the game, and we need to protect all levels: grassroots, League One, Championship, which 2022 is looming. And at the moment, my focus is on what's happening in 2022 with Sky deal and with the finance and what's left. And I've signed players on 2-year deals. Well, at the moment, there's a distinct possibility that there'll be no distribution. So we go from celebrating 125 years of rugby in 2020 to potentially falling off a cliff in 2022. What's going on? It's just madness.
That's the catalyst behind a lot of this, isn't it? That clearly nobody knows, be that at the top table or the tiers below, what the distribution is going to be from 2022 onwards. Although the likelihood is, looking at the rights being sold currently in the television market and the economic strictures that have affected broadcasters as much as the clubs themselves, that it will be less. I think we'd be very surprised if Sky came up and said have more. We'd be delighted if they said have the same. I think the likelihood is this is jockeying for position around perhaps having less. To the best of your knowledge, the way the deal looks like it would be carved up is that League One would be left with nothing. The Championship and the RFL might have very little, and everything would go to Super League. Does that mean that automatically the Championship and League One are completely unsustainable if that was to happen?
Well, it depends on what level each club relies on the distribution, which the distribution as a percentage of our business is about 20%, which you lose 20% income in any business, and it's not terminal, but it's going to affect it. Now, I'll go back to what I said earlier. We're in the entertainment business, and if we've got 20% less income and we can't replace it with something else, then we've got 20% less buying power to put the entertainment factor on the field. Would we survive? Yes, we'd survive. Would we be competitive? It depends on what the others do, Well, we've been focused on for the last 12 months in trying to find other income streams and other ways that we can improve the business. So it's not something that's just turned up on, last week. We've been working on it for 12 months. We've got some quite exciting announcements coming out in December, which I can't unfortunately go into, but it's addressing the decline in gates, which is what, quite ironically, what we got dropped out of the Super League challenge on, the size of our gates. Well, we've got some plans in place to reverse that, and it's all part of a long-term strategy which we're all working on. So would we no, if we lose this, if the Sky money reduces, then we'll be fine. If it goes away, some clubs will be hurt more than others, and I think some possibly will not be able to continue, which is sad. And I go back, we celebrate the 125 years one year, and then potentially we're losing clubs 2 years later. It's just madness.
Do you think we do enough to sell the Championship as a product in its own right? And the one thing that has happened over the last 2 or 3 years is it's built into an incredible competition. And a lot of the teams in there are on equal footing on and off the field. And I think we all know from having watched Rugby League for a very long time, in my case, that if you get two teams that are evenly matched, it doesn't matter what you call the division, it's just a great spectacle. Have we spent too much time looking at a destination that the Championship doesn't need to be at? Can it effectively be a competition that is attractive to fans and broadcasters in its own right? And is that how it should be looking at itself at the moment?
Well, look, I go back to when the Championship was on TV on a Thursday night. I saw the TV figures, and they doubled in a 12-month period. And at the same time, Sky was tabling Super League, and the numbers were, let's say, static. So in my world, there was a need for Championship. However, we must be the only sport being paid not to be on TV, because that's effectively what the Sky deal is. It's a fee to not be on TV and compete against Sky, against the Super League teams at the same time, which the value of that is significant. The question is, what's the true value of the Championship going to the open market? And I don't think anybody really knows what that is. I think we've all got suspicions that it probably wouldn't be the same level, but until you go out looking, you don't know. Now, going out looking is a brave move currently, but I'm sure there are people out there weighing up both options. I don't get involved at the in those kinds of negotiations, but that's it. Yeah.
In terms of Halifax as a club, because you are as representative as any, I mean, you've got the history, you've got the tradition, you've got plans for the future. Would it be enough for let's say the sport came up with a 3 and a 5 year plan, for you to reconcile yourself with the fact that winning a Championship grand final at, say, Headingley in front of 15,000 fans and getting a civic reception at Halifax Town Hall, the possibility of getting to Wembley, which would be the most, again, a wonderful day out to see those blue and white hoop shirts there again, through the 1895 Cup. Is that enough to sustain you? Do you have to have Super League as a goal? Batley are one club that are constantly referenced as saying, we think we've got a niche for ourselves here, and we can make money and be successful and fulfil our obligations to our community in the Championship because it's a valuable competition in its own right. Would it be unfair to say that that's the place for Halifax in the immediate future?
I don't think it's unfair to say that. I think there's two ways of looking at it. Some fans maybe would like Halifax to be a top 5 team every year, winning 75% of the games and putting on a great show every week. Some fans don't accept that. Some fans think, without moving into Super League, you've got no real, what's the word? Ambition.
Yeah.
And sanity and vanity comes to mind when I start talking about ambition, because, the bottom line, the finances that we face, the financial difficulties that we face in the Championship, when you get into Super League, you put another nought on the end of those financial challenges and they become serious challenges. So, you know, a lot of the Super League clubs have got financial benefactors, which is not really how you run a business, but it works in the Super League that we know. Now, we're not lucky enough to have an individual that is prepared to write 7-figure checks every year. So it has to be done on performance as a business. Well, sport is not a normal business either. That's the other thing, you know. It's a 9-month income and a 12-month expense. You know, that itself is massive, you know, and also changes in weather. If it rains on match day, you lose 500 on your gate. I mean, these are just things that we face every week. In Super League, those issues would be, you know, much harder to follow. However, Super League is the game that is the top of the table. Super League is on TVs. You know, all the things that in sport, when you want to be the best, you've got to be the best. So I have one eye. Yes, I would like to be in Super League, but I also like the thought of being at the top of the championship and competing and entertaining every week. And I think if we get that right, then we've got a decision to make. Do we want it? And I think we're at that point, really. We get to the point where we need to get back into the top 5 every year and then look at it, you know.
Halifax were involved in the Super 8s when they were a thing. How and obviously you've had success in the Challenge Cup in recent years, getting to the semi-finals at Bolton. How did you see that Challenge Cup run? But the Super 8s as a format, was that something you were a fan of?
I quite liked the Super 8s. The problem with it was you need a bigger squad, because to play against full-time Super League teams at the end of the season, when your players are carrying little niggles and knocks and injuries and they're not quite at the best and they're being hit by this massive muscle mountain, it's, you know, it takes it out of the team. So you need a bigger team to rotate. Had we had a bigger team and a bit more prep and a little bit more finance, I think, looking back how we handled it, I think we'd do it differently. But you're always going to be up against it, you know, to play the gulf between part-time and full-time and Super League and Championship. It's huge. But you know what? The players loved it. They loved the challenge. The fans loved it. The TV, everybody liked it. It was a good concept, and I just think it needs a little bit more thought. And also, you know, if you're talking about the share of the Sky funding, if you like, well, if you put the Summer Bash and the games that we were on TV as a percentage, it kind of balances with the amount of finance that we receive from Sky. And if we're not on, it's just another reason to say, well, you're not coming to the table. So yeah, I liked it. I mean, it wasn't perfect. There's nothing perfect, but I quite liked it.
We've spoken about the Summer Bash before, and it's almost a shame that it seems to always coincide with a round of Super League games. I mean, last time I think we had that Catalans Wigan game in Barcelona in the middle of the first day in Blackpool. And for those wanting to make a decision whether to go to Blackpool and Barcelona, and I enjoy going to the Summer Bash, for those who think, well, I might get a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity here, I guess it's another chance, another sign of just the game not working together, and promoting the Summer Bash as a great event for all Rugby League fans and not just those in the Championship. Yeah,
I think that was a bit of a wrong call. But again, the broadcaster decides. You know, we don't have a say in it. I like the Bash. I think the Bash, it's got legs and it needs to be worked on. I think it needs to be. I like the location in Blackpool. I think it gives the fans. Look, the fans need a day out. You know, we've lost the Northern Rail Cup. That was a fantastic day out. The playoffs at the end of the year, when we used to have the Championship playoffs and there was a trophy at stake. All those days, that's what fans build up to. That, you know, merchandise in the shop. You know, merchandise sells on a. If you get a cup final, you get an extra 30% income from your merchandise, which it's all gone. You know, so the Summer Bash, to me, I think we've got to work at it. We've got to make it so that more of the Championship teams attend, because I don't think it's. If you're honest, the crowd is not great for the amount of teams that are there. So I think it needs marketing, it needs pushing, it needs working on. You know, what's the other one called? The Super League version. Can't even remember what it's called.
Magic Weekend.
The Magic Weekend. Thank you. The Magic Weekend. Look at that now. It's a great event. Sells out. Moving it around. I mean, taking it to Newcastle was a fantastic move. And you know, Halifax playing at the Summer Bash in Blackpool. It's just great. I love it.
I know you're not going to let us into any secrets about how you intend to increase your crowds until you're ready to do so. But one of the things that's always struck me about areas like Halifax, and the club is central and integral to this, is the work that you do in the community.
Yeah.
Clearly, I know you would want more resource to do even more, and there are issues within the Calderdale area that you want to get involved with that maybe you can't finance at the moment. But how important is that to you going forward, that you don't lose touch with foundation work, if I could put it like that? And how much is that going to be the trigger for getting more people through the gate?
Listen, that's the vehicle that we're going to use. Look, our demographic, our season ticket holders, the average age of our season ticket holders is the wrong end of the spectrum. So we have to address that. So we're not going to address that by, you know, standing around. So the foundation that we have is geared up to visit all of the schools, and we've got a new campaign, and it's all going to be coming online. That's, without the community, we're nothing. We are a community club basically, and that's where the work needs to be done. And there is some plans in place, which obviously I can't divulge at this point, but it starts in the community, and we've got a really exciting proposal next month, which I think people will, what's the word? People will be, it's a Marmite. It'll be either a very, 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 very successful, or it won't. But at the end of the day, there's reasons behind it, and
you're not going back to the Blue Sox, are you?
No, absolutely not. No.
The other thing, you've got around you some of the best community clubs.
We have.
So you look, for example, at Sidall, which you know is within your neighbourhood. How frustrating is it that their best players don't automatically come into your system? You can't realise a transfer fee because Morgan Smithies has been in your academy and you've sold him on to Wigan. And again, is that something that we need to look at as a sport, that something's gone wrong there, that you're producing players but not for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating, but those players are empowered to play at the highest level, you know, so it's not right for us to sit on a player just because he's in our area. However, I do think that some of these Super League clubs that come in and sign them at 15 and 16, and then they spend the next 3 or 4 years, I think there's a role for Halifax to play in being the caretaker and allowing those players to play within our organisation, to get them ready, because the jump from playing at Sidall to Academy to Super League, every jump is massive. You know, playing against men, massive. So, you know, rather than the player go to a Super League academy for 3 or 4 years and then fail and then come to us, I'd rather see us be part of the process, form the relationship. We've got a great relationship with Huddersfield Giants, and I think we should all be working together, all of the clubs, to get the players to play at the highest level. No one club should be allowed to hold players just to sign them. I think that's wrong. So I'm not upset that we lose them. I'm just upset that, well, not upset. I just think there should be more emphasis on what the player needs, and we should all be helping that player get there.
So does dual registration work for you? Obviously, clearly, clubs do it differently. Relationships between clubs within that partnership are different. There isn't a set of criteria. You know, the Doncaster Hull model, as it was originally set out, seemed to be a blueprint that wasn't taken up by too many other organisations. Can you see that working for you? Because I think one of the feelings that that perhaps it wouldn't work was there's a junior and a senior partner in all of this, and the junior partner gets taken for granted.
Yeah.
Can you see a dual registration system whereby you get as much out of it as, let's say, Huddersfield would?
Look, I don't think there's any perfect situation for two such imbalanced businesses or such different businesses. The dominant partner is always going to be the decision maker, but it's down to the relationship that you have with the individuals in each business. So I've got a great relationship with Richard Thewlis. We speak regularly, but again, that's only as good as, you know, director to director, because what really counts is the coach to coach. Now, the coach's needs change weekly, and that's the problem. The problem is, you know, they might have the best intentions to provide a link or a pathway for a player that's ready to play, not quite ready to play Super League and needs a little bit of game time, but then they get an injury, so that player, instead of going down that path, gets put into the first team. So it's circumstances, you know. At the end of the day, it works if everything else works alongside it, and unfortunately, that's life. Things change. We're happy with it. You know, next year it's gone, but we will be using the loan system. The difference there is that players have to come for a minimum of 4 weeks, which makes the outgoing coach's decision a little bit more. Can that coach allow that player to be not around for 4 weeks? That's a little bit more difficult. But if they've got 15 spare players, then there's no reserves, there's no plan B. If they need game time, they've got to accept it's 4 weeks. And you know what? That'll actually help us, because I'd rather have a player for 4 weeks than in and out and change around. And so it's how you manage it. And I think, you know what? Some people have abused it in the past, but Halifax are happy with the relationship we've got with Huddersfield. It works, and that's because we've set it up to work. You know, we've had the initial meetings, and we've laid the foundations down, and we know what is expected of us. Huddersfield know, you know, it's a relationship. It's a two-way. Any business, it's got to be a two-way relationship. Otherwise, it ain't a business, or it ain't a relationship. So.
You've mentioned obviously going into 2021. We don't know the format of the league yet. Furlough coming to an end again, but it looks like we are starting without crowds. How does that affect things from a business side of the club? Obviously, from a playing side, the players will get used to it, but no money coming in, but you've still got to pay the players.
Yeah, well, there are plans in place to look. They're talking about this is not definite, but they are talking about the league season starting the beginning of April. But before then, we would normally, all championship clubs would arrange friendlies to try and generate some off-season income. Then there would be the 1895 Cup, which is possibly taken over from friendlies. So there is talks of, prior to April, combining the 1895 Cup and the Challenge Cup preliminary rounds into an opt-in scenario where you've got to opt in to do it. You know what? The budget for friendlies, or the budget for cups, is very low anyway. We don't budget to make a profit. Now, what excites me is that there are plans in place to potentially live stream. So if there are no crowds allowed in, there will be a facility, hopefully, to stream. And there's two ways of doing that. You can do it free for season ticket holders, both home and away, or charge. Well, I think if it's a cup match, season ticket holders don't normally get entry anyway. So, you know, the income from the crowds, the income from cup games is not huge, because it's usually a reduced rate, and it's usually a reduced crowd, it's usually the same expense. So streaming at a reasonable amount possibly will be the same or better. You know, so, and at least it gets, you know, we need to put a start date on the season. Fans need to have something to aim at, and to say it might be April, it's not. You know, we need to be saying we are going to start 1895 Cup stroke Challenge Cup rounds in February, end of February or March, and there'll be so many rounds, etc., etc., and then we'll start the league in April. And if we can do that, you know, if we've got the contingencies in place to cover the financial costs of that, everyone's happy.
How proud have you been of Brandon Moore? Because using him as an example of how a relationship between clubs works, he's been a fantastic advert for the kind of player that you're developing down at Halifax. I think his average number of tackles in a game was over 50. And he's proved that with very little conditioning, having not played for a very long time, that he could handle himself at Super League level and was an asset to the club. Does that reflect really well on you, that you produced a player that could so easily step into to that environment?
Well, look, we didn't produce him, let's be honest. He came from Castleford's academy, and he was player of the year before he came to Halifax. He was already on the radar. He was a good player before he came. So we're not taking credit for that. We just helped him get better. But yeah, to go out there and put the shift in that he did. I mean, we knew he could do it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have allowed him to go. It's been a burning ambition of his to play Super League, and he's in the area that he's got a really good job. And for him to play Super League, he would need a decent salary, and that's one of the issues in, you know, Brandon's combined wage from working and rugby is significant, and I just don't think that there'll be Super League clubs out there that will offer that amount. But he's done it. Now, we would never stand in the way of a player. If a Super League club came in, we wouldn't stand in the way, but we're happy that he's with us next year.
We're running short on time, as we always seem to do with these things. I'll let Phil ask something else in a minute, but just from my final point of view, what's the general feeling then around Halifax going into 2021? And I guess trying to get fans back into the habit, because, you know, we've all had 6 or 7 months now of doing nothing, or well, for some of us, others at key workers have had plenty to do. But for those of us who've been sat at home with nothing to do, we've kind of got out of the habit of going to watch rugby league games. I guess that's part of the strategy to get them back into the ground next year.
Yeah, look, we're very excited. We've got a great, probably one of the most exciting teams assembled for a decade. Simon's addressed some of the areas that he thought needed addressing. I think every incoming player that's replaced an outgoing player has been an improvement, and I think the biggest thing he's done is specialists. You know, I think we've probably been guilty in the past of playing utilities rather than specialists. Now we've bought specialist prop, specialist back row, specialist hooker, etc. So I think that move by Simon, it was a smart move. Now, I am very, very optimistic for next year. I think the fans have got a lot to be cheerful about. We're going to have an exciting team on there, and instead of scrambling to be in the top 5, I think we're going to be in the 5, 4, 3. We're going to be up there, and we're going to surprise a few. With all the other off-field, what should we call it? There are some off-field.
I don't want to say shenanigans.
I nearly said it. I nearly said it.
Innovation. You've got some innovations.
That's the word, innovations. You know, and yeah, the fans have been starved. We've all been starved. We all want to watch rugby. It's going to be over a year probably by the time we get back out there. But you know, we're ready for it, and I think the fans should be excited. It's going to be a great season. I just want to get going. I just need to get going, like we all do.
Anything else, Phil?
I've only got one question, but first of all, yeah, just the one. I mean, thank you for your insight. I think it's really important, particularly at this time when everybody's so obsessed with what might be happening in division above, that we don't forget the hard work that's going on in the championship. Mm-hmm. And I think everything you've said, if I was a Halifax fan, would give me hope, and I think that's all you can do at the moment. Yeah. But what on earth is it going to be like around the place? And this is nothing to do with playing. Not having Scott Morrell. Your life will be so much easier, won't it?
Peter Pan has left the building. Well, Muzzer was part of the furniture. Not just a great player, what a fantastic bloke. I just can't speak highly enough about the guy. And, you know, we sat down. He'd got to the ripe old age of 30-something and needed to be looking at the future. Now, yeah, he could have stayed at Halifax. We could have kept him, but he was offered a position where he could play rugby and potentially he could get a job around that. Now, we can only give him a contract for 12 months, and Muzzer needs something for the next 35 years. And, you know, and I kept saying to him, forget us, you know, look after yourself. And the guy was absolutely in bits, but he had to make the call for himself and his family. And that's what people really don't understand. You know, we don't own these players. You know, these players come for a short period of time and they entertain. And it's important that these players set up for the rest of their life. And that's an example. You know, Muzzer, great guy. He will always be welcome at the club. And I know he's going to come back. And I know when he's not playing at Keighley, he'll be down. But you know, the reason behind that, and the fans need to understand that these players have got the rest of their lives to lead, and we've got to help them, and that's what we did.
And the only other question I had, the World Cup when it was last in this country, there was a great game at Halifax, a Sunday afternoon. I think 4,500 people in lots of colour, noise.
9,877, I think it was.
Yeah, 4,500 were in the corporate, I think, as well. Never got out to see the game.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful afternoon. Do you expect spin-offs from the 2021 World Cup? Is that something that you'd be looking at and saying, if this goes well, we can trade on the back of it?
You know what? I'm disappointed that we didn't get a game at the Shay. You know, I don't know what. I was part of the process that negotiated getting a game at the Shay last time, and I didn't have any conversations this year. I don't know what went wrong. It would have been. I would have liked to have seen a game at the Shay, and I think the back of that, yeah, you get a lot of pluses. You get a lot of. It's just a great day. You know, different people coming in, and we're going to miss out this year, unfortunately. And it's a shame. It's a real shame.
It was a great day. I was there as a volunteer at that World Cup, and it was, as Phil says, a very noisy and colourful afternoon.
Fantastic.
A great time.
Yeah, I mean, for such a small stadium to nearly fill it, you know, I'd like to see it full every week. It's a different game. It's a different feel in a small stadium that's full. The atmosphere, it's just fantastic. So I don't know why. It's just a massive shame, really. There should be a game there, but for some reason, it's not.
So we'll hopefully at some point in 2021 be able to watch a game at Halifax. So fingers crossed everything goes well with vaccines and.
Well, stand by for a great season because I think it's going to be a cracker. I'm excited.
Ian, we're excited as well now. It always takes a guest to get me excited about things. So thanks very much for your time this afternoon. We wish you all the best in 2021. Fingers crossed, of course, so we get fans back and enjoying life at Halifax. And we look forward to hearing about these innovations. We're excited, especially with it being described as Marmite.
Keep your eye on social media the first week of December.
That's soon.
That's all I'm saying.
But the main takeaway is it's not the return of the blue socks, so everyone can.
No.